أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين سيدنا وحبيبنا ومولانا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. By the end of our second sitting yesterday, we spent quite a lot of time discussing the Adamic self, which through your reading on page 43, page 70 and page 73, you would have grasped the broader understanding of why the term Adamic self is very relevant to the subject of soul and nafs, and how these two are inseparable, and yet from a soul perspective it faces towards the light of Allah, and from a self perspective it faces dunya. And self has a higher and a lower within it. The higher, which is attuned to soul, and lower, which is that part which is distance of or running away from its original nature, its disposition. Okay, and by so running away, that's the word iblis or balasa, which means to distance yourself from your original state or your original nature. And when you distance yourself or move away from your original self, that's when you step into what we call into vuln, into that void, that empty space, that dark space, that unknown, where you're exposed and vulnerable to all influences and elements, like the Quran says, "Alladhi yuwaswisu fi sudurin nas." When suddenly you will hear the whisper in the dark alleys, sending cold shivers through your body, and you will react to it, and before you know it, you've slipped, you fall, and you've hurt yourself. We've reached that point. Oh, do we agree? Are we there? Okay. I must say that I'm excited and very happy that since the end of last night's meeting and this morning while I was preparing and just revising, that I've met several of you and we've had one-on-ones, we've discussed. I'm very happy to know that some of you have really taken your reading seriously, and that you are curious in terms of getting to know the subject matter better and seeing the relevance of the subject in terms of self-knowledge as an important component to your moving forward to that desirable state that you are, that we all in fact yearn for. What is that desirable state? That state of unity, oneness with creation, oneness with our Lord, oneness with each other, even though there are apparent dualities and complementary opposites that we are engaged and confronted with in a daily or on a daily basis. That is a reality which is inseparable of our existence, but we understand its nature as in opposites, as in pluralities, as in diversity, as the Quran has mentioned in so many verses. I've created you in different languages, in different tribes, in different nationalities. I've created you differently in color, language, continent, and so forth and so forth. And it is in there you will find and discover your unity. In the physical aspect, dunya, you will see yourselves uniquely different. Very important, not different. You will see yourselves uniquely different. Why do I say the word unique? Because there is appreciation for your difference. And there is an attraction because of your difference. Not the other way around. Because of your difference, I am at war with you. Isn't that very much the culture we are in at the moment as Muslims? We differ so much to the degree we must kill each other. One, or the West, the people we live with, within Sweden and the rest of the world, they're having a good laugh when they're having their wine and their cheese. Because we are the story of the day. Front page, middle page, and at the back page. We are the laughing stock of the world at the moment. These people are killing each other in the name of God. How stupid is that? Here, our God is our national, is our mother country, and yet look at us. We can absorb all of them who are killing each other, we are able to absorb all of them and make them comfortable and make them at home and make them enjoy the same luxury we enjoy, comforts we enjoy. I think their God is better than ours. If it's a question of gods. And that's the kind of mess that we get ourselves in when we are no longer attuned to our higher self. That ruhaniyah within each and every one of us. You do not have to be Arab or non-Arab to qualify for this. Because we are already in it. We are already attuned to it, but we just do not know. Remember yesterday we spoke about I was a hidden treasure. Allah makes reference to Himself as I was a hidden treasure. He will remain was as in the past tense if we are in a state of ghafla, if we are in a state of forgetfulness. And if we are in a state where we are not attuned to the frequency, the heavenly breeze within us, then we will continue to see each other differently. Not uniquely different, but just purely differently. And that difference brings about an agitation. Isn't it so? You itch. You itch. Because you feel compelled, you have to do something about this. Who said you must do something about it? But you feel you need to do something about it. Why? Because we can't coexist. Nafsi, the lower aspect, is competitive. The ruhi aspect, the higher self within you, is just basking in the light. You want to swim? Swim. You want a mountain? Climb the mountain. You want to jump from the highest cliff? Bismillah. It's all fine. I'm basking in the sun. There's space for all of us. Where's the animals? Where's the birds? Where's your grandparents? Oh, mashallah. It's all wonderful. The kids are calling me. Okay, it's time for me to be foolish. And the grandfather's not well today. It's all okay. But you are in harmony with everything. This business of righteousness, correctness, with a back that's hard, stiff neck, run far away from people like that. Run far away from people like that. Especially amongst our people. Because they are killing us. You know that song? Killing me softly. So, we reached a point yesterday in our conversation where Allah spoke about the contented self. Ya ayyuhan nafsul mutma'inna. The contented self. The self who has no agenda except to be wakeful of the ever-presence, Allah. And is governed by that command. And acts on that command. And realizes that it, by definition of its existence in this world, as nafsi, which is its projected self into this world, it acts only on the command of Allah if it is going to bring about a result that is pleasing to Him. This is it. That's the difference. We have a scenario in our culture, and this is sensitive, but please don't label. Don't label me and don't label yourselves. We have a scenario in our culture where our history basically has two faces. The one face has its allegiance to the family of the Prophet. The other face has its allegiance to the friends of the Prophet. And it has forced its agenda on us. Us as people from the West. Africa, are we part of the West here? Yeah. Or are we just in the wild? Okay. Thank you for accepting us. I mean, I know Turkey's been fighting to be with part of Europe, so maybe we should too. That sensitivity that exists between these two dynamics has been the result of many deaths in our history. And so much of grief and pain in our history. So much so, yesterday when this young man was singing the song about that it is fard upon us to love Ahlul Bayt. Am I correct? Were you saying it? Okay? My heart went out for you immediately because I felt your pain. Because how can you love something when you're not sure you can be public about it? Like someone who is gay and he's in the closet. You know, we call that, what do you call them? He's not publicly gay, so he's in the closet. He's hiding his inclination. Not judging him, I'm just giving you an example. How many of us have to live like that? That when we openly express our love for the Imams, how do we react? Ha, Shia. When he openly expresses his love for Sahabi, mashallah, he's part of the majority. He's okay, mashallah. Why can't we have both? My wife and I will share with you some of our journeys of how much we, especially our women, how much they yearn to know the lives of the females in the house of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. How much literature is there available of these great women? The best that I've seen in English literature about Khadija, the wife of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the first and whom we all revere. She was an amazing woman. How much is her example the example in our women's lives? And you know why it's not that case? Because we men have prevented it. Because we have a problem with Khadija. We have a problem with the women in the house of the Prophet. Because when you go back to their history, none of them took nonsense from their men. They sent them into battle. They treated them when they came off the battlefield. Did the Prophet propose to Khadija or did Khadija propose to the Prophet? What I'm saying to you is there was a partnership between these men and women. A partnership that was unbreakable. That even when Imam Hussein was martyred at Karbala, those women would not take allegiance with Yazid. Instead, what did they say? Throw us in your prisons. Do what you want to. But we stand for what our father, our husbands, and our grandfather stood for. This is our haqq. This is what we've inherited. If our women were to learn more about these women, they would not allow their men to get away with the crime that they are committing. Why am I sharing this with you men? Because we need to reconcile within ourselves as nafsi and as ruhaniya. Don't speak about love of the Prophet's family when you have no clue who they are. Don't say that. Because then you are lying. Remember the story yesterday of the Sheikh about this boy who was taught not to lie? We are the biggest liars. And that is why people like myself and Sheikh Muslim, we are enjoying the fact that we are able to marry the two again. And marinate and open ourselves up to the windows of Khadija and Fatima and all of these amazing women of the house of the Prophet. And allow them to teach us what we have lost. Within you is that feminine side. And within you there is that masculine side. Deny it and you'll be out of balance. As much as the animal kingdom is within you, as much as you have access to the angelic qualities and the attributes of Allah, on a very base level, which is here now in this moment, we have to nourish ourselves with the best personalities if we want to raise ourselves above the situation that we are. So that's just an example of the conflict that we are in. And what Sheikh Fadlallah has done was amazing. He's managed to raise himself above these two forces and says, you as individual, you have the right to both Ahlul Bayt and Sahabi. So we are now of that generation that are able to openly express not a love of something we have no clue of, a love of a house of Imams that we have as much right to than those who claim that these Imams belong to them. And Allahu Akbar. I am so grateful that my heart is open to that. And this morning I would like to send salutation on all the Imams of the Ahlul Bayt. And I would like to send salutation on all the women of the Ahlul Bayt. And that our healing and our salvation lays in us entering into their homes again. And once we make sense of our homes, which is the house of our Prophet, we will make sense of our own homes. That's the sensitive matter. We move on. Ya ayyuhan nafsul mutma'inna. Contented self. We are, and we have been traditionally taught about the various traits of the nafs. You know, the nafs, the boastful nafs, the commanding nafs, the blaming nafs. I'm just using quickly these terms because that's not where my focus is going to be. But we have been traditionally taught about these various layers within nafs that either helps you ascend to your highest potential or keeps you in jahal, in your jahiliyyah. What was it about when we take the term jahiliyyah and we make reference to jahiliyyah as in the time of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, and he came to correct these moral codes? Were these people illiterate, these Qurayshis? They were not illiterate. They had within their communities Ahlul Kitab, from the Jews and from the Christians, with their scripture. They had relations with the Persians, with Alexandria, with Rome. We are talking with Greece. We are talking about countries or empires that was built on their literacy. It was not built just on swords and battlefields. It boasted some of the best libraries of that time in the world, where science, astronomy, biology, ecology, mathematics, all the sciences that was modern of that time was available in these countries in their libraries. Was there such a library in Makkah? But what there was poetry. It had its own unique weapon, and it was through poetry. That when these Arabs finally, through the Quranic teachings and injunctions, was encouraged to get out of Makkah and Medina and go and explore all these terrains, what happened as a result of that? War? See, unfortunately, most of our history books that was written by us Muslims, we always brag because we won the wars. But it wasn't about the wars. That was a small percentage of what Muslims achieved. And Shaykh Fadlala in his books, the element of Sufism and element of Islam is a must read for all of you. Please, I'm not promoting Shaykh Fadlala. All I'm saying is, here's a man who has strived to modernize. In other words, bring the unspoken into our reading now. Okay? To celebrate both Ahlul Sunni, Ahlul Bayt, whatever. To celebrate our collective successes. And by looking at the positives within it. Because if we want to redefine ourselves within a world where it is no longer about nationality, but state of heart and state of being, then we quickly have to catch up. We need to get up to date with these matters. So I'm coming back to the question. What was it that drove these men and women into these countries? Alexandria, Iraq. What happened to the libraries since the Americans forged a relationship with the government?
Burned them down.
Where's the library? Where are the libraries in Damascus? In fact, forget the libraries. Where are some of those towns? Are you telling me that all this is just happening accidentally? There is a deliberate move. What happened in Timbuktu? Rihanna, what happened in Timbuktu? And what was written in those manuscripts? It was our contribution to maths, science, astronomy, quantum physics. When did all this happen? In a time when the world was still in Jahiliyyah. And I'm not referring to the time of the Prophet Muhammad. I'm talking about Europe 300 years ago. Europe 700 years ago. When a doctor didn't wash his hands before he would commit to a surgery, he only came to find it out 100 years ago. When the Prophet Muhammad taught us through the Quran about sealing yourself, through the wudu, 1400 years ago already. Someone asked me, several of you asked me, so how do we regain access to our higher self? It begins by reading the text. Not subjectively, but simply opening yourself up to the history of the Vikings and the history of the strandlopers of South Africa and the Khoisans and the history of the Maoris in New Zealand. And the Apaches in America. What do they all have in common? Strong ancestry connections. And what did all of these ancestry belief systems, what was it really all about? About being in harmony with your creation and celebrating the successes achieved by those spirits that have moved beyond their bodies. That was all. But it made such a mark that as much as modernity had tried to come and remove it from the face of the earth, it will continue to be that breeze that will flow through, that will come into our worlds and continue through into the next world. Why? Because that is from Allah. It was ruhaniyah. That which tried to destroy and erode and eliminate it, that was nafsi. So, on the one hand, we were going into the worlds of Greek and all of these countries. We did not go to them and say, let me show you how to make wudu. We did not go there to do that. The story of Mu'adh ibn Jabal. How many times have we not heard stories of Sahabi whom the Prophet had sent out to govern? And there would come stress calls from some of the people, and he would call his governors back and say, please, show more compassion and show more understanding and consideration for the culture within which you are living. You are there to complement it. You are not there to destroy it. And it's only when they feel comfortable with you, only when they've embraced you, are they going to start asking you the questions that will bring about this transformation that we are talking about. Not conversion. Throw that word in the dirt bin and flush it. The word is transformation. For now. We are always happy when we convert people to Islam. Perhaps they're better Christians than us as Muslims. Why do you want to convert them? So our business is not converting people. Our business is self-transformation. Because then you don't have to say anything. Just be. And people around you will come close to you and say, I want to be like you. This is how we remember the stories of the Sahabi. So many stories, books and volumes of books have been written about these great illuminary lights that once would stand close to the Prophet Muhammad just to catch the water that would fall off his limbs as he was taking wudu, so that they could get the barakah of the water that touched the limbs of the Prophet Muhammad. My wife and I was very, very lucky that when we were now in Medina, there is a museum, and in this museum they have the model of the Prophet's house. The house as it was when he lived in it, the house as it began going through the changes at the time of his death. And the lightning that destroyed his house, and how they rebuilt it, and how they built a hall around it, and how the dome later came on it, and all of that. And what's beautiful that you can appreciate about all of that was our relationship and how we wanted to express our appreciation to this man for what he had achieved. So we put his turban on his grave. We call it the dome, the green dome. We put his turban back on his head. And now we want to take the turban off his head. Is this ruhaniya? Is this nafsi? So, mutma'in. Imam Hussein gives us insight to this. An-nafsul mutma'inna. And he says, nafsul mutma'inna, the contented self, hiya muwahhida, is that nafs which is in unity with its Rabb. So everything that we've discussed up to this point is about coming back to Itman, which is unity. One with its Lord. One with its source of existence. The source of its existence. This nafs that is in that tawheedi state, as Imam Hussein says, is that nafs which is in a state of shakira, gratitude. So that means one who is in that perpetual state of expressing gratitude to Allah is in fact expressing a wholesome state that his nafs is in. That his nafs is in a healthy state. Why? What is the opposite of expressing your shukr? Give me some examples. We're always complaining
The opposite
of gratitude.
sabr.
The ungratefulness. The opposite of it. That what you're saying is another another branch of it. The opposite of it is being ungrateful. How do we live in the world today, and how much of our time do we spend expressing our dissatisfaction about things in our own lives? My husband is this, my kids are this, I don't want this, I want more, I want this and I want that. Remember my wife's question that Sheikh Fadlala asked her was, when is enough enough? So that nafs that is not contented wants to acquire more and more and more and more. If acquiring is not when in a state of shukr, then it is selfish, because it will be acquiring for oneself. If one is in a state of shukr, then one is acquiring to give. In this way, nafs is reflecting the unity. That it is one with its Lord and acting on the command of its Lord. And the command of its Lord is, don't go to bed at night and your neighbor is still starving. But when nafs is in control, and nafs is in the business of taking and taking and taking, and Ramadan comes and he says, 2.5% Bismillah, now leave me alone. It simply becomes a transaction between nafs and its Lord. That is unhealthy. My fasting for 30 days for this month, it's a transaction. We'll come back to the fasting. So nafsul shakira then, hiya nafsul marhuma. This nafs in the state of gratitude, of thankfulness, is that nafs which was granted Allah's mercy. That's Imam Hussein's words. Marhuma. A nafs in a state of gratitude, it is evident that nafs has attained Allah's mercy. I'm going to contain myself here because I can't distract myself too. My wife is already doing this. Cut down. And we have that connection. My point here is there's very little in our global Muslim identity at the moment that really truly reflects the core of these qualities that should bring about harmonious transformation, as opposed to brutal transformation. Brutal in a sense, as Nabi Musa alayhi salatu wasalam said, that the nafs that fears death is like a silk cloth thrown over a thorn bush. And at the time of its separation from the body, it would be like tearing that silk cloth through that thorn bush. It has become so accustomed to owning the dunya, or that perception that it thinks it's owning the dunya. It owns its house, cars, all of these things, that at time of death it will even resist death itself. How much scientific work is being done in the world today to try and cheat death, when Allah Ta'ala has made it clear it is inevitable. So, nafsul marhuma. A nafsul marhuma, that nafs which is granted mercy, is a nafs healing. And that is the nafs that is able to go back to his son and daughter and say, I apologize for what I have said to you, for what I have done. Please see that act of mine as an act of foolishness, and not truly a reflection of what you are truly, and what you are truly going to become. Someone that even I will be proud of. How many of us have apologized to our wives? How many of us have apologized to our mothers? and to our fathers, and to our brothers, and to our plants, and to our community, to our poor sheep that we're preparing for slaughter, for sacrifice in Ramadan, when we ill-treat them, and then we expect to get the barakah of its blood when it flows and touches the earth. Yeah, it's sickening. It goes down into your belly like, oh. Because you know what? That's the result when nafs thinks that it is in charge. It is not the owner of Allah's creation. It is part of Allah's creation. And therefore be in servitude, as opposed to believing He's in the state of ownership. Marhoom. What does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says about His Prophet? He says, وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ. Here Allah ta'ala is pointing out to us the qualities of His most beloved. He is the one who has been granted my mercy. Because He is the one who is in a constant, perpetual state of gratitude. Remember the hadith yesterday that was mentioned by Sheikh Abdul Aziz? When he asked permission from one of his wives if he could perform his prayer. And she saw this man going through all of this effort, and in the end she asked him, why you, when already you've been forgiven for even that which you have not even committed? And what did he say? Should I not be of those who expresses gratitude for this gift of life? So وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ. Now when you look at your Prophet, he's the best example of how to recover, of how to help reconcile, first within yourself and with others. النفس الخاصة هي العارفة. Now we're coming down to the core of the nafs. This is the part of the nafs closest to the ruh now, the walls. The selected nafs is the nafs that is in ma'rifah. That is the nafs that has innate knowledge of reality. Meaning that nafs is now able to see the meaning in the act. Nafs is now able to see the meaning in the form. In other words, nafs is able to see that which is sacred within you, and therefore it resists in what comes from its tongue if it is going to be harmful. It resists in saying or acting out if it's going to bring disharmony, disappointment. Nafs, that state of nafs, resists from acting. It delays in acting when it is not sure that the result that might come from that act is a result that will be celebrated and not lead to further discomfort, harm, destruction and distraction. Fahimt? So, now we come to Nafsul Aqil. This is the nafs of reason and understanding. Nafsul Aqil is the nafs that is that aspect of nafs that understand the purpose of its existence. وَمَا خَلَقَتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. This is the purpose of its existence. And therefore takes the command from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to act on that principle and live on that foundation. Any questions so far? You want to maybe just stand up and just stretch your legs for a minute? Because I know it's tough sitting like this all the time. I can't. Please stretch, it's fine. Check. Oh, the window is open. Now here's an example, amazing example. عن أبي سعيد الخدري رضي الله تعالى عنه قال. Now I'm being traditional scholar now. قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. Don't get carried away in my ability to express myself in Arabic. Listen to the meaning of these words, because this is why I'm reciting it to you. There's one thing that I've appreciated so much about my time with Sheikh Fadlala. And if I go back to that story of when he told me to go and give those 3 discourses on the issues and the fatawas on the rights of Jumu'ah. And I came back after all of that, and he threw all the papers in my face. And he said to me, you are no different in your arrogance like the one who stood up in the mosque that day shouting that our Jumu'ah is batil because of what the Imam was conducting on the minbar. I could not understand him. How was I arrogant when he asked me to present these papers? And little did I know that I presented myself, I prepared the whole ritual, but I was using the same means that was used to create the problem. I was using the same means thinking I could fix the problem with it as well. I had to get out of that box completely. So what has happened over the last few years is I have to, part of my journey is I have to hold back. In terms of my job here is not to show off. In terms of, the scholarly trimmings that come with it, the curtains that's hanging in the cushions. So when you come into my house, you can see that's a sheikh because his books are nicely. No, it's not about that. It's about the issue that is being addressed and that I have to dive in it and disappear, and the issue is the priority. So be in it, see the entirety of it, as opposed to outside of it, looking at it, and then giving some scholarly interpretation of it. That's not what's going to help. So listen to these words, and I want you to grab it because it's deep, but it's beautiful. And this is one of many of the ahadith of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ that are not really fully appreciated. It's used, but it's not fully appreciated in terms of what it can do for us. يقول رب. This is a hadith Qudsi. It is رواه الترمذي والدارمي. So it is in these books of hadith. Man shaghalahu al-Quran. The one who keeps himself busy with Quran. So I saw one of your men reading on the other day and it just clicked and I like, let me bring this. Man shaghalahu al-Quran. He keeps him busy with reciting. وَالذِّكْرِ عَنْ مَسْأَلَتِي. He keeps him busy with remembering Allah more than keeping himself busy asking from Allah what his or her needs are. أعطيته أفضل ما أعطي السائلين. That what I will give that person will be of greater benefit and of greater favor than the one who is keeping himself busy asking of me what he needs and what her needs are. وَفَضْلُ كَلَامُ اللَّهِ. Now listen to the words of Allah Ta'ala to His Prophet says, the preference and the favor and the virtue of the words of Allah by keeping yourself busy. Like when we do dhikr, Quran, when you keep yourself busy with that, now we're talking about grooming the nafs now. وَفَضْلُ كَلَامِ اللَّهِ عَلَى سَائِرِ الْكَلَامِ كَفَضْلِ اللَّهِ عَلَى خَلْقِهِ. The kalam of Allah and being in that state of busyness is better than any other word. So let me repeat it. Right? That the favor of the word of Allah over any other word is like the favor of Allah over creation. Haq, is that the best interpretation or translation? Is like the favor of Allah over creation. In other words, creation, Allah is ownership of creation. We are in it, and by keeping ourselves busy in being in that state of perpetual wakefulness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's ever presence, and act on His command, by delaying our own agenda and waiting for His command to come through and acting upon that appropriately and promptly, Allah says that to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is dearer and will grant and favor that particular person with more than the one who is asking for what is limited. This is very profound. So with that, read the statement on the board. Once everything falls into place, I'll be fine. We've heard that, eh? Once I have my PhD degree, I will never go starving. Once I'm a doctor, I can heal the world from its pain. Listen to what Ruh says. Find your peace first. Find yourself first. And then everything else will be fine. Meaning, we are not in this world to solve the world's problems. We're in this world to solve our own problems. If one of us succeed at it, Allah will save a nation from a calamity. If one of us save ourselves from self-destruction, Allah will save a nation from calamity, from a calamity. How many natural calamities are running parallel to calamities that we are bringing upon the world ourselves at the moment? Come on, read the map and see. Iqra bismi rabbika alladhi khalaq. Read the map. And then we will see that it is not in us going out there and doing to bring about change. It's exactly what you are doing here. You came here together to give attention to yourself. And that is evident that there is already in motion transformation happening within you. And all that we are trying to express through our readings and writings is just to help put a name to that roller coaster of emotions that you're already experiencing within yourself. Nafsul Shakira, Nafsul Marhuma. Just trying to give a name to that which we are experiencing. So with that, in closing, 1 minute, sir. I'm being African now. With that, in closing, what I would like to say is, what you will experience over the next few months is the processes that you will go through as you yourself begin to expose yourself to yourself. Your meanness, your hardness, your clumsiness, your all of this, and deal with it all. But what's important is that you have a teacher. It is important that you communicate to your teacher or to each other or to a little group that you maybe be with in your location that you are, so that you don't go through this on your own. Like my wife said, part of our success thus far is that we are there for each other. And what I find a lot in Europe, Africa too, but what I find a lot here is that a lot has to go on this on their own. And it makes it harder. So reach out to each other and step into each other's trust. So whatever happens, whatever is said, maintain that between yourselves. And on a lighter note, just when I look at Abdul Hadi Sheikh, 1 more minute. We went together to Scotland some time back. And then we went to Rosslyn, and we went to the cave of William Wallace, us Sufis, Sufi goofies. And we got into this cave, and it was such an energy, and we just went into Hadra, hey, Allah, hey, Allah. And we got so carried away. I'm sure that William Wallace must have wakened, and all his oaks got there, they came in there. It was just one massive Scottish party we had there. But the best part of that journey was when we were crossing the river to get to the cave. Now that cave is in such a situation that you've got to go up a path that if you step too much left, you fall and you can hurt yourself badly. And Abdul Hadi, as we were crossing the water, it was freezing cold. He got halfway through the river and he stopped and he said, he can't move anymore. I said to him, access the Viking within you and get over. And that's what we share. We share the lighter moments together. We share the comedy together. And that's when you realize that Nafsi is not a threat to you. Nafsi is like that child crying out for attention. So give it a bit of attention. Let Ruh give attention to Nafs. Let Ruh act as father, so that it can bring its son under its cloak again and says, you are of my house. You are of my Ahlul Bayt. So inshallah, in my last session, we will bring it all together in the house of Allah, which is your heart. And with that, inshallah, then I will leave you to go and work through it, and inshallah maybe we keep in touch and continue to work on it. Shukran for your time. أقول قولي هذا فاستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين والمسلمات فاستغفروا إنه غفور